Imagine trying to survive a brutal winter without a single grocery store, refrigerator, or freezer. No stockpiled cans, no electricity, no overnight deliveries. You have only what you can hunt, gather, grow, and preserve. For Native American communities, this was not a thought experiment. It was daily reality, and they mastered it. They developed ingenious ways to make food last, weeks, months, even years, using nothing but natural resources, observation, and skill. In this video, we're unlocking the ancient secrets of food preservation, from Pemmican, the ultimate survival superfood, to clever plant storage techniques and even fermentation methods that rival modern food science. And here's the best part. These techniques aren't just history. They're practical, sustainable solutions that can still help us today. Whether you're a homesteader, a prepper, or just someone who wants to waste less food and live closer to nature. For centuries before European contact, native communities lived in harmony with seasonal abundance. Summer and fall brought plenty: fresh berries, migrating bison, full rivers of fish. But winter was another story. Food disappeared under snow, game grew scarce, and a single failed hunt could mean starvation. Preservation was the bridge between these two realities. It turned fleeting abundance into year-round security. It allowed for planning, trade, migration, and even large gatherings or ceremonies when food otherwise would have been scarce. Preservation wasn't a luxury. It was a technology of survival, as critical as fire or shelter. One of the simplest and most widespread techniques was drying meat into jerky. Hunters cut meat into thin strips, removed fat to prevent spoilage, and hung it on wooden racks in the sun and wind. In some regions, slow fires were lit underneath, producing smoke that kept insects away and added flavor. Jerky was lightweight, portable, and incredibly durable. It could be eaten dry or rehydrated in stews. For nomadic tribes, this meant the difference between carrying heavy carcasses or traveling light, with high-protein food that lasted for weeks. Jerky was just the beginning. The real masterpiece of native preservation was pemmican. First, dried meat was pounded into a fine powder. Melted fat was mixed in, sometimes along with dried berries, then packed tightly into rawhide bags. The result was a calorie-dense food with a shelf life measured in years. Pemmican was lightweight, incredibly nourishing, and perfect for hunters, traders, and warriors traveling long distances. European fur traders were so impressed, they adopted pemmican for their own expeditions. It became a cornerstone of the North American fur trade. Today, survivalists and preppers still consider pemmican the gold standard of portable, long-lasting nutrition. Smoking wasn't just about flavor. It created a chemical shield. The phenols in smoke inhibited bacterial growth, while the heat reduced moisture. Some tribes roasted meat or fish before coating it in rendered fat, creating an airtight seal. Fish like salmon were smoked and dried on elaborate wooden racks during seasonal runs, producing enough food to last an entire winter. In coastal areas, some communities even stored meat submerged in seal or whale oil, keeping it cool and oxygen-free, a natural preservation method that worked like refrigeration. Meat wasn't the only food that needed preservation. Corn, beans, and squash, known as the Three Sisters, were central to many native diets, and each had its own storage solution. Corn was dried on the cob, or shelled and stored in lined pits, baskets, or clay pots sealed with mud. Beans were dried until brittle and kept in woven sacks. Squash was sliced into rings and dried, sometimes strung on lines like garlands. Together, these preserved foods provided a complete nutritional profile: carbs, protein, and vitamins, sustaining communities through the long months when nothing fresh could be gathered. Foragers knew how to turn the forest into a pantry. Berries were sun-dried or mashed into cakes. Nuts were cracked, leached of bitterness, in the case of acorns, and ground into flour. Tubers, like camas, were slow-baked in earth ovens to make them sweet and more storable. Even wild herbs and greens were dried for later use, ensuring access to important micronutrients during the winter. This wasn't random gathering. It was carefully timed and coordinated with ecological cycles to avoid depleting resources. Fermentation wasn't accidental. It was part of the plan. Some tribes fermented corn into hominy-like products or allowed berries to naturally ferment into lightly alcoholic drinks, which could be stored longer and provided extra calories. Fermented fish and meat products, while pungent, were highly nutritious and easier to digest, especially in cold climates where calories were precious. This process used beneficial microbes to transform food, long before modern science explained why it worked. Food preservation was often a community event. During salmon runs, entire villages worked side by side to gut, smoke, and dry fish. After bison hunts, meat was sliced, fat rendered, hides stretched. Everyone had a task. This collective labor turned survival into celebration. The work was punctuated by songs, storytelling, and ritual, turning food preservation into a cultural and spiritual anchor. These ancient methods aren't just history. They're tools we can use right now. Drying, smoking, fermenting, and fat sealing are all accessible techniques that can reduce food waste, save money, and build self-reliance. They also offer resilience in emergencies. Power outages, supply chain disruptions, or even just camping trips become less stressful when you know how to keep food safe without a fridge. And perhaps most importantly, they reconnect us with seasonal rhythms, teaching us to plan ahead, respect abundance, and share resources. Food preservation wasn't just technical, it was ceremonial. Many tribes offered thanks before storing food, leaving a symbolic portion for the earth or the spirits. This practice reminded everyone that survival was a partnership with nature, not a conquest of it. Today, that mindset might be the most important lesson of all. As we face climate change and ecological challenges, reconnecting with this ethic of respect could help build a more sustainable food future. So, there you have it, the ingenious food preservation methods that allowed Native Americans to thrive in some of the harshest conditions on Earth. Which technique fascinated you most? The legendary pemmican, the oil-sealed meats, or the plant-drying methods? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know which one you'd try in your own kitchen. If this opened your eyes to the brilliance of ancestral knowledge, hit like. Share this video with someone who loves history or survival skills, and subscribe for more deep dives into the wisdom of the past. And if you want to take action, try learning one of these methods yourself. Dry some fruit, build a small smoker, or research traditional food storage methods from your region. Because every time we revive these techniques, we don't just save food. We save a piece of human heritage.